Ladies and gentlemen, we are now doing the middle of the morning or late morning session as we run into lunch, and we've got an excellent keynote speech followed by a panel session. Can I just check, can you all hear clearly? Yes, everyone at the back? If anyone is struggling, please do come forward, there are plenty of seats. On that note, I would like to introduce the wonderful Matthew Gamser, Chief Executive Officer of the SME Finance Forum at the IFC. What a job, what a title, Neglect the Nerds at Your Peril, and why angel investors must pay attention to fintech, so we definitely should be listening in on this one. I would like to hand the stage to you, Matthew. Would you like to stay there, or would you like to come to the podium?
No, I'm going to stay here.
Right,
but I'm going to stand up,
much.
just because if I sit down, then I might fall asleep while I'm talking to you, but I don't think I'll do that. As you heard, I'm Matt Gamser. I run the SME Finance Forum. For those of you that haven't heard our introduction from yesterday, the SME Finance Forum was created by the G20 countries. It's a center for knowledge exchange, promotion of networking, and a bridge for dialogue between the industry and policymakers on all matters SME finance. So I spend a lot of time with fintechs and with banks and with development banks, and we built a network that now is, in 2 years, has grown to some 145 of the above from about 60 or more countries. So I think I'm reasonably well qualified to talk to you a little bit about fintech, but I'm very nervous because I had to spend the earlier period in the CEO's forum because I was running a panel there, so I have no idea. You know, when you're giving a keynote, you usually expect you're the beginning, so you can sort of set the stage, and you've already got plenty of stage. And the second thing that makes me a little bit nervous, to be frank, is giving a talk on fintech without using slides is like something that is alien to me. Now, of course, I wouldn't be using the sort of boring slides with all these words and things. I'd be showing you pictures from Star Trek. And how many of you ever watched Black Mirror? Okay, so there's some wonderful clips I could show you from Black Mirror about what would happen if digital data, which I heard you talking about, where we can take that to the extremes, where anybody who wants to watch Nosedive, which is Series 3, Episode 1 of Black Mirror, to where we already are in China, by the way. So the scariest thing about that show is not the acting and the plot, it's that we are already there in everything except for actually visualizing the rating of people next to their face real time. But people in China do have those ratings real time, and just try to get visas to travel to other countries, just try to move from cities or take certain jobs, and you will find that already exists. Now, but let me backtrack, because while I don't know what you talked about, I want to focus on fintech to help SMEs. And the unfortunate truth is that fintech is a really exciting and interesting sector, and I go to a lot of fintech expos, but most fintech has nothing to do with SMEs, has no interest in SMEs, and in fact has no interest in markets beyond North America, Europe, and maybe now to an increasing extent, Singapore, Hong Kong, a couple rich places in Southeast Asia, East Asia. And that's unfortunate because, for those of you that didn't hear my talk yesterday, there's gigantic market opportunity in emerging markets and in particular in the SME space. But in the SME space, even in developed markets, there are huge gaps between supply and demand for finance for SMEs. And there's a huge role that SMEs still need to play everywhere, creating jobs, being a key source of innovation. And fintech, there is a large potential for fintech, and it's a shame that more fintech doesn't focus on that space. And one of the things that I get to do in my basic job as chief cheerleader and marriage broker for the SME finance industry is to try to convince fintechs that I see doing interesting things, but focused on this 1% and trying to give them even more financial services than they're already overwhelmed with, to try to say, hey, you could go to the other 99 and there might be a lot of interesting things you could do, and you could make more money in maybe even in less time. But you just have to go beyond what your venture capitalist friends are telling you to do, which is focus on where they can bicycle to. So having just about alienated many people by that, let me talk about why I mean this. So, as I said yesterday, SMEs are really difficult to serve, especially for financiers. And it's been because your typical SME is at least in emerging markets, has been a cash business. No matter what they do, whether they buy, when they sell, it's cash. And the records are sketchy, and the only way in the past to figure out what's going on has been to go there, kick the tires, and then keep going there so you keep in touch. Because it's not just about how do we get in and figure out whether we should finance you or not, but it's once we've done that, we have to manage our investment, and the costs of that have been prohibitive. And so the result has been that fewer and fewer financial institutions have been comfortable with this sector, and we have a huge gap. But as you've heard, there's tremendous potential now in moving from a cash society to an electronic society. And whether you're doing it for cash transactions or whether you're doing it for other social and market interactions through e-commerce and social media and other platforms, this is a tremendous space for fintech. But again, most fintech doesn't take very seriously the SME dimension of this. So while we do have, for example, in China, a true ecosystem where virtually every transaction, no matter how small, is done on the phone by a greater and greater number of people, we don't have that, for example, in the famous M-Pesa from East Africa. In M-Pesa, you do the $100 transfer from Nairobi to Kisumu on your phone, and then your grandmother, your aunt, your cousin has to do every other transaction in cash, and the merchant that is the key agent for all this can't accept anything other than cash. So that poor merchant, the bigger the business gets, the harder the prospect it is to be an agent, because really they don't pay enough for that purely to be a great business. But the merchant is not helping to advance the business. The merchant's business is not becoming more transparent. How do we make more worlds like China with Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu, and get true ecosystems? That's a tremendous opportunity. And it's not a social opportunity, it's a commercial opportunity, because these things will be paid for. There may be some roles of government in all this to help the process along, but it's a tremendous business opportunity. So, and so we change from when we're thinking, how do we build SMEs, how do we finance them, we have to change our thinking about, not about, okay, let's go in and get them credit because we can make money on that. No, the first step has to be, how do we convert them to electronic transactions business? And we can build all sorts of things on that, and credit is only one of many viable financial and other services we can do to build that business. Because the second class of very interesting fintech that can build on this base, if more and more of the business is electronic, is a set of fintech that is helping SMEs run the SME better. Companies like Strands, BCSG, Strands is from Barcelona, BCSG is from Old Street, Silicon Roundabout, as some people know it. You probably never heard of them because they're almost exclusively white labeling through banks. But what they're doing is they're taking those electronic flows, they do it for consumers as well as small businesses, and they help the business manage its finances better. So the old world of I'm a venture capitalist, I'm a banker, bring me your business plan. No. I've got your electronic flows, I'm generating your business plan, and I don't need a one-off plan. I see your business every second of the day, and I can see the opportunities and the threats, and I can push to you the notices. That's another area where, and not only that, if I have that information and I'm a financial institution and I have information about my consumers, I can start even offering you ways to manage your customer relationships. So you may not be Walmart or Costco or Macro, but you can do a customer loyalty program the same way as they can, because through the cloud, we can bring that firm the same potential. So there's another great area of opportunity, massively underdeveloped. Now finally, the businesses that grow the fastest and create the most jobs are businesses that can move across borders and connect to markets. Unfortunately, and I am not speaking as a representative of the World Bank here, I'm speaking as an individual, so please don't say the World Bank said this. There are two technologies that underpin cross-border business and cross-border transfer of any sort of value. One is the SWIFT system. The second is our trade finance system. The SWIFT system, as I said yesterday, comes from the 1970s, uses telex technology, slow, expensive. Trade finance is even worse. Hasn't changed since the Venetian, virtually in quilled pens, sealing wax, stamps, tons and tons of paper, tons and tons of potential for error. And there are trillions of dollars tied up. Some of my colleagues in corporate treasury estimate 19, 20 trillion. I don't know what the number is. But if you can move that money faster, then things could get a lot better. And the great news about distributed ledger technology, blockchain, is that its best application is in the SME space to help in taking these processes and making them more point-to-point, making them faster, more accurate, less tamperable, and also taking not only the money, but the movable assets that are a part of this trade relationship and putting them in the same equation and making it much easier to see who owes what to whom, who's done what, where are the liens, all these things that for SMEs are critical. So there are many, many ways. This is just a smattering of them that I want to challenge you with, because I think that the biggest potential for FinTech is actually FinTech to help SMEs, and not just that FinTechs happen to be SMEs when they start out. So with that, I leave you to further panels.